Michael. How are you doing today?
I'm good.
How's the weather? It's not bad, is it?
It's great.
Bit of a penny in your pocket, as we like to say.
I love that saying.
But we do have some regular segments that we like to start with. The first is...
Activity of the week.
Hang on.
Activity of the week.
Are you doing this whole thing for a bit?
You didn't get the giggles early enough.
Eleanor's doing exceptionally well here, and you're not helping her.
I know. She's trying to be me.
You're
Trying to be squeaky. It's fun. Bit of PD in your pocket.
That's what I like to say.
Okay.
This is flawless. Hello and welcome to the Integration Station. My name is Eleanor. I'm your host for today. I'm a child and adolescent occupational therapist, and with me today is my co-host Michael.
I'm also a child and adolescent occupational therapist. How are you, Eleanor?
I'm good, thanks, Michael. How are you?
I'm good, thanks.
For those of you who are joining us for the first time today, we have a Q&A format on the Integration Station. You can send us through your questions. We'll do our best to answer them and try and find the fun in learning how to support the young people in our lives. Bit of PD in your pocket, as I always like to say. Now, we've got a few things to talk about today. I think we've got some articles that you were hoping to chat through, a little bit of theory around the pinch method.
Oh.
But before we get stuck into that, we'll go to our regular segments. The first one is called
Therapy activity of the week.
Therapy activity of the week. That's the one.
Therapy activity of the week.
I'll go first.
Great.
I had a really fun activity I was doing with one of my clients on Monday. And have you heard of the board game Settlers of Catan?
I have heard of Settlers of Catan.
Have you played it?
I have.
Great game.
How did you bring it into therapy?
Well,
Or is it inspired?
kind of. So there were two games we kind of merged together. One is a card game called Coup, and Coup's like a deception card game where you have 5 different types of cards and they're 5 different characters. They each have a sort of different abilities, and you have to essentially try and win by knocking the other person's cards over, so they lose the game by having no cards left. Yeah, there are different ways to do it, and you can lie and be deceitful and find your way through it. And then Catan, for those that don't know, is a fantastic German or European-style board game and a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Lots of problem solving and building settlements and longest roads and other things. Anyway, so what we used was various spaces of the ninja course.
Oh, that's cool.
So there's like the Bosu balls, which are like those half hopper balls.
Yeah.
The what we call like the angle blocks. So when you can jump between the blocks in sort of this zigzaggy pattern from one side to the other.
Yeah.
And we had those, and we also had what's called the pommels or the pommer, if you want to, whatever people term it as. And there's like a long rope with a disc.
Yeah.
3/4 of the way down that you sort of balance along from one side to the other. So the pommer were the forest. The Bosu balls were the settlements, or where people, set up settlements. And the angle blocks were the mountains.
That's very cool.
So they're the different locations where you can claim your properties or your areas. And so what we did was we had different coloured sashes. So I was green and he was blue. And if we landed on a sash, for example, if we landed on an area, we place a sash down to say that it's ours.
Yeah.
And so you start the game, you select 2 of the cards, face down so you can't see. You shuffle the deck, select 2 of the cards, and they each have their own power up within the game itself. So it could be a character that wipes another card out, or it could be a character that when you land on a space, you put that card down and no one can challenge that.
Yeah.
So different power ups for each thing. And then we did actually played the game the following day with another client. And we added in a dice roll component where you roll the dice and it adds for those who know Catan, adds the robber. So the robber stays on a settlement or stays on a location, and you can't move to any of those locations, or you can't claim any of those locations for a set period until you roll a particular number. And then
oh my gosh, there is so much that you have to be thinking about in
Can I be fair? Like, it took us about at least half an hour to set up the game.
I can imagine.
But for the right client, the right person, it works so well, and certainly piqued the interest of a lot of the other OTs around, saying they wanted to give it a go.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And it was a lot of fun. Like, I genuinely enjoyed it. I think I ran overtime with the session because I was so close to winning, and I didn't. But yeah, it was a great game. And, you know, if we're thinking about all the skills that come from creating your own board game, I don't know did you ever do that in school where you had to make your own board game?
Yeah, I think so, but I couldn't tell you any more about it. That definitely sounds familiar though.
Okay, this is how old mine was.
This one's kept in rotation.
I remember I did a Sydney 2000 Olympics board game. Right, so
love it.
That's a throwback. 25 years this year. Anyway,
You can bring the board game back out for like an anniversary edition.
Oh, wow, could you imagine? Need to get the
Can't wait.
AOC approval.
That's what we're discussing on the next podcast, everyone.
Okay. But the skills that are required to generate, and like board games are so complex. So you're playing a board game is hard. Think about how many skills and how much information you need to be able to generate your own board game.
Yeah.
Because there are so many, you know, there's so much probability, there's so many, if this happens, then this will happen, like so much planning. It's essentially like coding, right?
Yeah.
So you have to have a lot of if this, then that. And in the game, you're working together with, and again, this is where it has to be the right client who, one, is motivated to do it and also has the capacity to come up with these ideas.
Yeah.
Well, you're working on that for a long time.
Yeah.
And the best thing is that it's that classic, it's not the outcome, it's the process. So the process of developing the game, the process of coming up with some fantastic ideas and doing it in a way where you're both having to navigate and compromise and generate ideas collaboratively.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
That's so true.
Right? And so the fact is we managed to come up with something and then play it as well. But for the next person that I was playing with the following day, I had a whole bunch of rules and it took me 5 minutes to explain.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So, yeah, it was great fun.
That's really cool. Actually, this isn't what I had to bring for therapy activity of the week this week, but it reminds me we did like a D&D version in the Plus Park once. We called it OT&D. And someone who's very motivated by D&D, less around some of the physical aspects, even though that's something that we're trying to work on together. But he was so into it and brought in a whole bunch of other people that were in the park at the same time. And it was really cool because each week we would build upon the campaign. We would have weeks off in between, but he had come up with characters and it was so interactive. We would do things like we'd all have to do a challenge together in the plus space and we'd roll the dice to see, well, how many of us had to do the challenge or what we were aiming for. And so we had that interest, but then we're bringing in lots of elements in terms of the physical space to work on all those different goals. And everyone was so engaged. It was really, really cool.
It reminds me of the 2019 Game of the Year, I think it was, at Plus, which was OTFC Mario Party. So we're using the Ninja Warrior course as essentially the board.
Yeah.
And you roll the dice and you move across the different obstacles. And then, once everybody has their turn, then there are particular challenges and you decide before the game starts what the challenges are. You write them on a whiteboard. Anyway, long story short, it was crowned the 2019 Game of the Year.
I love that.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of these things, you can certainly replicate in like at a local playground or with equipment that you have at home. We're using what we have available, but like this is so easy to translate into lots of different spaces.
Well, you talked about D or Dungeons and Dragons or D&D as it's better known. The game that we came up with, the game we termed as Catan, because it was a mix of Catan and Coup.
Yeah, cool.
Was I said to the young lad after, I'm like, you can play as a home with your brother. Like you guys can, like you both know the games. You can always do it. Like it's school holidays. Find, I don't know, just a whole bunch of things to use and use a space and then just play it. So yeah, absolutely. Very, very transferable.
We normally have another segment, regulation strategy of the week. I don't know if we've got enough time to talk about it, but that's so cool. I love hearing all of those different games. So let's do it. Second regular segment, Reg Strat.
Regulation strategy of the week.
Regulation strategy of the week.
I actually have one with a bit more of like maybe a teenager, young adult focus this week, which came off the back of one of my sessions last week. Mm-hmm. But we were talking about, I guess we talk a lot about like heavy work opportunities and stuff, especially for like school-aged little people. But just I had been workshopping with someone that I've been seeing what that can look like as more of an adult and still providing that input. Have you ever done like slam balls where you've got like a weighted ball and you're holding over your head, slamming it down to the ground? And we were talking about that as a bit of a release when we're feeling overwhelmed or there's a build-up of big emotions. But then I also loved that it had the proprioceptive side of things as well. And so we trialed that with weighted balls in the park. We also had pillows and then we were almost using ourselves to throw into like a crash mat, which I guess at home could look like the bed, the couch, and just looking for that input and that release. And I was doing, doing slam balls at the gym, and I was like, yeah, this is really, I can see how this could really work. So a bit of a different one, but that's been mine from the week. And I think you can be quite rhythmic with it as well, where it's, pick up, throw down and just repeat. And then that can be, I think, get you out of your head sometimes and bring you back to that like present moment, be quite grounding.
Yeah, good one. I think I saw you actually going through that. I think it might have been the space at the same time. And
Yeah,
you were going through
yeah.
That was really cool.
Yeah. So yes, that was the purpose of that is, well, what can I do when I can feel that in the moment? And I know that sensory input works really well for me, but it needs to be something that's active. And so we just workshopped a few ideas, and I think that's one that really stuck, which was cool.
I was thinking one earlier today. It was before we came into work. I had like hand and body cream, but it was like
You
scented.
are always just about like what, how you can use just everyday items.
Yeah,
I like
I don't
it.
know. I think I just forget how much. And last time I was talking about like teas and the smell of teas. This one was also a combination of the texture of the hand cream. That's not, you can get some hand cream that's like really takes ages to rub in. Is really like creamy and like ugh. I'm not great with like
You have sensory
shaving cream
preferences.
and, yeah, with on the hands. But this one is pretty good. Like it comes in, pretty quickly and it rubs in pretty quick without making your hands feel yuck. Right? Okay. But the smell is fantastic. It's just beautiful, and there's different types of it, but this one's kind of like this fruity sort of lychee and some other
nice.
things. Like really nice. Anyway, I like it. But I just feel like, how you have smells or scents that take you back to a particular time?
Yeah.
Right. It's a really nice memory of a time from a few years ago before we had kids, but that's a separate thing. But anyway, but it just has this really nice smell, and so every time I put it on, it's really calming. Yeah. And I don't mind the texture of it, but on the face and the hands and that smell, it just really elicits quite a mindful, calming response. And so often, after I've had a shave or something or a morning routine, I like to put it on and it's grounding.
Yeah.
So everyday stuff. So I think, I see lots of people use hand cream and other things as maybe to support, I don't know, skin integrity or whatever else it does. I'm actually not too familiar with how effective hand cream is, but dry hands and whatever.
You could just Google it.
You could probably Google it actually.
Something would probably come up.
It would definitely come up. But I think I just prefer it from the olfactory perspective.
But isn't that really cool how our senses can, I guess these multiple effects can almost transport you back to a different time or almost, take you out of your head and take you somewhere else, which is kind of cool.
Yeah. I think that's part of it, isn't it? Is that, you want your sensory regulation strategies to transport you to another place for multiple reasons, whether it's to, as you said, from a regulation perspective, to be more grounded or more regulated or feeling calmer, or to take you back to a time that was enjoyable, could have multiple purposes.
Strong connections.
Yeah, but that was my
That's
example.
cool. You need to bring it in.
I should.
I want to smell it.
Okay. Done.
Probably from here, we can jump into some of the questions that we had. Well, not so much questions this week, but some interesting things that had come across our desk across the last couple of weeks.
True. Yes. There's some banging going on down there, so we still got
we do still
construction
have some construction here.
Okay.
And I guess when we talk about sensory modulation and being able to filter out aspects of our environment to do what we need to do, I think my brain has clocked that and gone, yep, that's okay, that's what's happening. But your brain is very focused on it.
Yeah,
which is okay.
Which is just
good to label it.
What happens there in a classroom if I'm someone that's really focused on the noise of someone banging or someone tapping on the table?
Absolutely. But you're not in a safe enough place to go, hey, can I just say out loud, I'm finding this really tough. Can we?
What do you do?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think the hard thing is that's what the issue is, right? Where we maybe don't feel like we can do something about it. And then what that ends up looking like is inattention or restlessness, or I start talking to my friend, or I start doing something else because I just can't switch that off. And I'm just trying to find something, or I'm then now missing information from what's happening around me. So probably that.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess once you find it hard to filter or modulate the world around you. It goes back to that, when that happens, that arousal level goes up, and then when the arousal level's too high, it means attention drops off and you can't really engage or learn the way that you want to.
Yeah. So with that in mind, Michael, what does your nervous system need right now?
Well, now that it's stopped, it's okay. I guess if it kept going, probably a combination of things. One, if I know that it's happening, then some forewarning that it's going to happen.
Yeah.
But when it's unpredictable, I think sometimes it's the affordance to be able to move to a different space or have something to, whether it's, to cover the sound or to deaden the sound, or for me to be able to, to wear something in my ears to block the sound out.
Yeah. I was going to say we could have you in headphones so you can just hear yourself on the microphone and less around what's happening elsewhere.
Yeah. Or if possible, you could always have background music.
Yeah.
Something that's the whole class can tolerate, some ambient stuff in the background.
That's very true.
Enya always works a treat. I remember my year 4 teacher always used to play Enya when we were doing handwriting. Don't know why, but everyone's
When you were
handwriting
making your
was
Sydney 2000 board game?
Hang on. No, I'm not. I was not in year 4 in the year 2000. It was well before that. Anyway, thank you for the bringing up that modulation strategy.
Yeah. So you mentioned last week that a National Director, Dino, had brought an article to your attention, and we'll get to talking about some of the key takeaways from that in just a moment. But shall we start with the pinch model, which I understand you heard on another podcast?
I did.
And have been using it with some of your clients this week.
Yes, I did. Yes, I have been looking into the pinch model. I did discuss it with one of my clients this week, and I've been doing it in previous weeks with some other ones as well. It came from another podcast I like, the Neurodiversity podcast, and on there they were interviewing a person talking about strategies for ADHDers and I guess real life or real world strategies and things to change the focus. I think what we often find is that, that there's the ADHD, that attention deficit or deficit in attention as per the title can appear quite deficits based. But what it really comes down to is that dopamine imbalance. So they talk a lot about in research and anecdotally trying to find the things that can help regulate and reward and provide pleasure and focus.
Okay.
Because a lot of ADHDs do have that imbalance with dopamine, and dopamine's very much a reward pathway. And so if you can find strategies or supports to build that pathway, then you're actually tapping exactly into the needs of that person. Okay. So what the pinch model does is it works with that brain wiring. So instead of working against it, I guess it uses that wiring and supports that understanding of how to work with those people.
What context would you use it in?
So I guess the context I'd use it in is, well, why don't I just explain the pinch model first, like the acronym. So the pinch is spelled pinch, P-I-N-C-H, like if I was to you right now, that's the word pinch.
Yep.
And the P stands for passion, I interest, and novelty, C competition or some sort of challenge, and H is for hurry. But the hurry is more like urgency, getting things done in a set time. So I guess the traditional view is that there are components of ADHD is that lack motivation or initiation. And I was talking about with one of my clients, a young man who always talks about he's such a really insightful, such a lovely guy. And he just always talks about how his initiation to complete tasks is just not there. Okay. So the motivation to get things started is so hard, and it's just this massive barrier every single time. And he's been doing the same course for years. He really wants to finish, but he needs the body double. For those that don't know, body double is essentially having someone as a body double there to support you, or they might be doing their own tasks, but they're there to physically just be present and actually might be able to assist you. They might be able to just, be there as a helping hand, but may also be doing your own things. But anyway, just that physical presence can actually really help some people. So he says that's massive for him, but motivation and willpower can be really tricky. But when I heard about this pinch model or method, I talked to him about it and said, I genuinely don't believe you don't have motivation. Because you tell me you're very interested in doing certain things, and it comes down to the fact that in certain tasks, maybe the way it's pitched isn't the most motivating or the most rewarding or the most enjoyable or whatever term you want to use. And it could be something like, doing the dishes.
Yeah. And I get that sometimes making a start on a task. So when you're talking about that task initiation, it's that first step from either switching what you're doing to starting something else and being able to put those first steps in place. But you have to have, I guess there's that intrinsic guide that leads you to that first step. But I can completely understand if our brain is wired in a different way, making that initial connection can be really tough. And I think it always sucks when it's presented as a lack of motivation, or I actually don't like using this word at all, but I think it is seen as laziness sometimes, but it's just not that. It's just because all the other steps can come. But imagine if the trickiest part of the task was starting the task for you. How hard's that?
I sometimes get into arguments. I have actually been in an argument with a parent before about laziness. And they're he's just lazy. And I always say, I'm just going to pause. I don't say I'm going to pause you there. Some people say that. I'm just I just want to challenge that view because, and I don't know, maybe it's just me being an optimist. I genuinely don't think anybody is truly lazy.
Yeah.
I think there are people that struggle with motivation and initiation for a number of reasons, and they just need to find the right pathway to get things started or to initiate something.
Yep.
And so when someone says, "Oh, he's just lazy, he doesn't want to do it," I'm like, "Well, give me some context." And then when you break it down, you go, "Okay, one, that task sounds pretty boring for him, or her, or whoever. But secondly, the amount of what's expected is unclear, or there's lots of steps." And there's lots of parameters in here, and the one thing I'd say for something like the pinch method is for those that are needing to initiate a task or needing to break down a task, there is still a component in there that needs further guidance. So I remember talking to another client about using things like, I don't know if have you heard of Goblin Tools before?
No.
Goblin Tools is just a website, and it can, so for example, say you wanted to, I don't know, recipe for, I've got 5 items, get me to make something with these 5 items.
Yeah.
Or I wanted to make scrambled eggs. What you can do is you can put that in the prompt, and then you can choose the spiciness level, like how much you want that task broken down.
Oh, that's
or how
very cool.
little you want the task broken down.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And I remember doing it for another client about, she was packing to go overseas, and it was like, I don't know what I need to make sure I've got all my stuff ready. And I was like, let's do extremely spicy, like everything you need. It's like, make sure you get your passport, you got your visa, you got blah, 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 like
this many pairs of pants,
exactly,
this many
like
t-shirts.
literally everything broken down. I remember she took that with her. She was like, that was what she used. But what that does is it gets rid of the, I don't know what I need, and it just does it for you.
Yeah.
Because, and both of these clients were ADHDs, and what it does is it breaks it down so you don't have to do the thinking. It does it for you, and then what it can do is it's almost like a multiple choice. It prompts you to think about something else to go, actually, I remember I need to do that based on this other prompt that I've seen. Yeah. ChatGPT and those sort of things do a great job of that now as well. So that's another option, but this one I have used in the past quite successfully. But the whole point of that is when I think of those things, I'm like, okay, it's helping give an idea, but there's a novelty component to that as well. So if I think about the pinch
that's
method,
true. Yeah.
That's one of those things. So what I'll do is I'll just go through, I guess, what each term looks at. Yeah. And I've got a picture here, as you can see on the screen. So
cool.
The P passion or playfulness, and that comes back to that intrinsic motivation. And we talk about intrinsic motivation in SI, like what's intrinsically motivating for a client will mean that they're going to engage in activity for longer. Yeah. Right? So if I'm thinking about someone who, say, wants to start washing dishes, like what? Can you honestly tell me, I mean, some people love washing dishes, but can you honestly tell me that I have to wash a whole stack of dishes is intrinsically motivating for you? No.
My husband every night is like, let's just go now, let's do the dishes. And I'm like, oh, can't I just do it in the morning? And I also, I know for me, in the evenings, I'm not functioning at my best. I'm more of a morning person.
Sure.
So no, I can say
that's
to
fine.
be asked every night to do
absolutely
to do the dishes. Yeah.
So that is not the most intrinsically motivating thing to do. Now, the way that you might address that is going, okay, it's not the most motivating thing to do the dishes, but how can we increase that motivation? Can we do it in a way that's more enjoyable? And so in that way, you're adding in other components, or it could be interest. So it says focusing on tasks that are fascinating or captivating. So whilst washing dishes is not the most enjoyable thing to do, can you build in something there that makes it more enjoyable? Can you, whilst you're doing it, can you be listening to something that you like?
That's where my mind initially went to,
Yeah, listening to some music. Or can you do it in a way that, there are small things that are easy to do, and I will do those small things and then do that part down. Like I'm interested in making sure all my knives and cutlery look really, really shiny.
Yeah.
Because for some reason I really like that.
Yeah.
So I'll clean those really well, and the plates I'll leave to later. But, finding ways to increase that passion or that playfulness to it, and finding interest within that task as well. I've got another example which I'll get to later about something that also came up. But so that's the passion and the interest and novelty. So it talks about new or exciting things to maintain engagement. I remember someone mentioning to me about having multiple different toothpastes.
Yeah.
So that you never get bored of brushing your teeth, because you can just rotate through the toothpaste. And I find like I do this all the time. Like novelty is a huge thing for me. So it's like I've got multiple different pairs of shorts that I like to wear when I go running.
Yeah.
So I feel like wearing that pair of shorts with that t-shirt.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, that's a motivator to go, or rotate through the type of shoes that I have.
Yeah, yeah.
To go, now I'm motivated to go for a run because I want to wear those shoes with those shorts. And that sounds really weird, but it actually increases the motivation to complete that task.
Yeah.
And
especially because like when I think about, going out for a run, right? Getting dressed and organized is the first step to that. So like that could be the barrier. If it's like, oh man, I have to get changed, I have to get dressed, and then I have to go out. But it's like once the wheels start going, then it's like, okay, I'm dressed and ready, and now I'm moving, and now I can step out the door and go.
Even getting up, if you're someone who does it in the morning, getting up in the morning to get out of bed in this weather at the moment, it's like,
yeah, it's hard work. Can confirm. Yeah.
Yeah. So having like some level of novelty, and so I'm always, when people always like to buy things and have new things, I think sometimes, within the right context, that's okay. If it's done in the right way, it can actually increase someone's motivation to complete a task.
Yeah.
How many people love having, additions to their stationery set, or change their computer set up and everything, and then that's that novelty, trying to keep it, to increase the motivator, and all these things are designed to increase the level of motivation. Yeah. So that's that N, that novelty. C is the competition or challenge. And this is a huge thing, like gamifying everything. And in this day and age, there's so much gamification. So even apps that are designed for well-being have an element of gamification in there. So do this many times and you get that streak and whatever it is. So I think for anybody, neurodivergent or not, like competition or challenge really gives you something to, and it's not against other people, it's just for yourself. It gives you something to work towards or build on. So I certainly relate to this competition or challenge component, because I think that that gamification does increase the motivation of a task. Yeah. And the last one is urgency, or hurry, which is the H, but urgency. And that comes back to, for a lot of, I talk about this with a couple of my clients, for a lot of them, they'll get tasks done when tomorrow it's due and I have to get that done. Yeah. That sense of urgency actually promotes a lot of things in the brain to switch on and go, okay, I can act in crisis mode. Yeah. But planning things out over a long period is harder. This morning you talked to me about planning things, and like you get used to me. It's like the week in advance, like next week it's due, and I'll have it ready then. But planning long things out over a period of time.
I think you've been learning about that about me a little bit more. That is like me to a T.
That's fine. Yeah. And I certainly sympathise with that as well, compared to some other people that work with that have got massive plans, that they've got well advanced, and they are fantastic at organising and planning. And I live with someone like that. It's just amazing.
I'm the same.
Everything's organised and they're so good. And that helps me. Yeah. Because then I have my urgency, so I can go, okay, I need that done by tomorrow. I'll get that done. But then I know lots of things that are in advance that work for the other person. And anyway. Yeah. So these are all core principles or core motivating strategies, I guess. And the whole point of this pinch method is to understand the way that an ADHD's brain works differently and tapping into that, rather than going, you can't do it. Let's flip that around.
Yeah. I was just about to say, like, yes, I can appreciate it's quite tricky at times to think of like these different ways to do things, but it's great that there's, multiple things across this as those 5 core motivators like you shared. Because what's the alternative? That it's something that's this routine task that's done every day, and that is, activities that we have to do. It's an expectation in daily life, but more mundane that isn't, then we're just not going to do that because that pathway in our brain that helps us connect meaningfully to those tasks, it's not there. And I think like what you were sharing, the goblin tools, is that what it was called that you mentioned before? I can see how it hits a lot of these things. Like for someone that is interested in using technology to support them in a task, like that's the passion and play piece, or even the interest, like the novelty of doing it in a different way. It's a task maybe I've done before, but I haven't had a lot of success with. This is a cool way of trying it. But the competition and challenge and like the spicy element to go, well, if I have it at this level, maybe next time I can try it at this, and there's options within that. So I can see even with that one tool, you're hitting a few different pathways here depending on the person, and then that task becomes less overwhelming.
That's where things like AI have been really supportive for this. Actually, I know you were, before we came on, you were talking about some AI stuff as well.
Yeah, I reckon I'll come to that next week. I had listened to a TED talk that was essentially saying that our generation, our grandkids will be the last ones to read and write because of the support that's provided with AI. That's their hypothesis.
Yeah,
and
right.
the TED talk was really interesting, and I had a lot of thoughts around it. So I think, I would love to revisit that. But you're right. I think AI really has opened up a lot of pathways for doing things differently, and for providing alternatives for if our brains are wired in different ways, or if we have different preferences in how to approach things, like this actually makes that accessible, which I think is really cool.
Yeah. So with that whole pinch protocol, I think if we go back to, and you talked about it before, with, the brain and the prefrontal cortex, or the parts of the brain that can be impacted for ADHD is very much understanding that, okay, that part of the brain has components that do need further support to kickstart or to work in the way that we want it to. And all these strategies tap into whether it's, the dopamine system or norepinephrine, along with dopamine to strike this balance of all the neurological components working in conjunction to make things easier, more effective. And after all this, all we want to do is support someone to be able to do the things they want to do.
Yeah.
And for it to be less effortful. We talk about this all the time in SI. It's like, we do an assessment and we see that someone's able to do things, but it's very effortful. And even though their scores may be, within average ranges, you can see that that's so effortful for them to achieve that.
Yeah.
So the same with this, for some people, and for a couple of individuals I'm thinking off the top of my head, like they can do things so well, but it takes so much effort. How do we reduce the effort? How do we reduce the strain?
Yeah.
And so
the
methods like
load.
this can be really useful. So there was one example that also came up, I think it was in a similar or different podcast, and they were talking about, going back to what you mentioned about D&D or Dungeons and Dragons, was the D&D dice. OT&D, sorry, within the OT context.
Yeah.
Was the D&D dice roll.
Yeah.
So for those that don't know Dungeons and Dragons, there are a myriad of dices. Is it dice or dices? Dice.
Die
Plural.
Yeah. Dice
Sorry.
one, die plural.
Got it. Myriad of die. And so all the different die have different shapes. There's the D6, which is, 6, 1 to 6, your normal square-based.
Yeah.
What's the term? What's the...
A cube.
A cube. Square-based cube. That's what I was going to say.
A square-based item that looks
cube.
three-dimensional in
It's called a
nature.
cube.
Oh, cube. Gotcha.
So yes, so there's the cube, which is the normal six-sided die called a cube. I was struggling to get my words out. And there's a whole bunch of different shapes, different die, and they have a set of numbers that goes, I think, all the way up to D20. There's 20 sides.
Yeah, crazy.
Right? And they are all part of the game. Now, I heard someone talking about using the D&D dice roll, or using the die to do a dice roll to help initiate or work on starting a task. So almost using that pinch protocol, we got the play element with the dice, the interest of, well, this person likes D&D, therefore there's going to be more motivation.
Yeah.
The novelty, like, I haven't done this before. And whilst there's no necessarily competition or challenge, it is tied to some sort of gamification. And I actually pitched this with a young lad last week, and it was so interesting. This is someone who was so disengaged with like a lot of therapy ideas and services, and it was kind of almost a bit of a Hail Mary to come in and have a chat, and we could go through some stuff. And I pitched it, and he's not the most expressive. Well, he does chat a lot, but he's not the most expressive about ideas that aren't his own.
Okay.
And so when I was suggesting this idea, I'm like, look, I'm just going to put it out there, just being really honest. I heard this from somewhere else.
Yeah.
Don't have to do it, but just hear me out. And the response was, that's the best idea I've heard. Like that's a
How
great
good
idea.
is that?
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, now whether or not I'm seeing him in a couple of weeks, whether or not he's able to, trial it.
Yeah.
But even just being able to take on the idea. So the whole concept is that you have different D&D die. So the way that I discussed it was that we start with the D6 and there are 6 different tasks on there.
Yeah.
And so you and whoever else you want to, or, this is where I think body doubling can be really good.
Yeah.
Someone to help hold you accountable for this as well.
Yeah.
Is you choose what those 6 items are. And one of them is your choice free time, right? But the other 5 are things that you probably need to or want to do.
Yeah.
So it's like, I need to clean my room, or I need to take this, to the post office, or I need to finish this assignment.
Yeah. Yeah.
So each of those 6 tasks are written down so you can see them. And then there's the D20, which is the amount of time you put aside
Oh, that's cool.
to attempt the task.
Yeah.
So essentially what you do is you roll the 6, whatever task comes up. And if it's free choice, something you want to do, then fine, go ahead and do it. Then you roll the D20, and if it's, a 1, that's 1 minute you try it for. If it's 20, it's 20 minutes you try it for.
Yeah.
Whatever the task is, the D20 determines how long you do that for.
Yeah.
Now, you can do this multiple times a day. And the reason I like it is because it doesn't lock you in and say you have to do this for this amount of time. And if you don't get it done, then, you've failed.
Yeah.
It's I'm giving you the task. You've got the allowance to do it for that amount of time. And after that, if you don't want to do it anymore, fine.
Yeah.
But if you want to keep going, keep going. Like if you've done 15 minutes of your assignment, you're like, actually, I'm doing okay.
Yeah.
Then keep going. And however long you do that for, beyond that, that's a win, right? Because it was actually starting as I'm not starting it. Now you've actually initiated the task and you've done it for 15 minutes. And you know how some people say, like, what's the easiest way to get started? Just do something, get started. Yeah. That can be almost a real cop-out or a throwaway line for a lot of young people I work with. They're like, well, that's easy to say, just to start it. I don't know where to start.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know what to do to start.
Yeah.
So in this way, what you're doing is you're giving an opportunity to initiate a task, and whatever they do to get started is fine. They might write a note down and it will help them later on, but at least they've got something to work with. And this is where I also think you can certainly use, and this is what I did with another lad, was it was Goblin Tools, but ChatGPT to use AI to help with where do I start this, and it was, we'll do it for, the thing was start this assignment, and then it was 5 minutes, and it was like, okay, let's just go on, and these are the ideas, these are the tasks that I need to do. I'll just get that to help me kickstart what I need to do and where I can find that information. Yeah. And then go from there.
Yeah, I think that's really cool. And especially if that's what's removing the barrier to starting on that activity. And then once we're there and we're in it and we're starting to do it, and it's like, okay, actually this is starting to feel more achievable now because I've done the hardest part for me. And I think that's such a great example of, understanding that young person, knowing their strengths, knowing what areas need support, and then go, hey, I'm going to use your interests to help overcome perhaps the trickiest part of this for you. I think, that's a brilliant way to bring that all together.
If you look at any of the anecdotal evidence or even research, it's like in terms of the success or the payoff of a task, if it is infused with some level of relevance to that person, or there's an immediacy, like you see so often, there's that I need that instant gratification. Yeah. If there is that, then you're going to go, okay, this method works, or I can see something changing straight away. Yeah. And I think that's a really big motivator as well. So,
that's very cool.
So that's the
pinch model.
The pinch model, yeah.
Yeah, awesome.
And there's certainly plenty of information on the internet about it as well. There was one website I think it was Neurodivergent Insights
Yeah.
that had a nice little infographic on there. So
We might share that on our socials so that people can have a bit of a look.
yes, but as I said, that came from a neurodiversity podcast I listened to that talked about it, and some really cool things from there.
Sounds like you've been able to have some very insightful conversations using that, which is great.
And just a reminder that if a parent thinks that someone's lazy, they're not lazy. There's just other things going on.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah. I think, like we always talk about, I think that's just one of those things, one of those terms that you're going, oh, actually, hang on, can we just unpack that for a second? And you're thinking about, well, what's happening underneath? What's that trying to communicate? Yeah.
It's like the inverse of, when someone sees us doing therapy and they go, you're just playing with my child.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, yeah, I am. But the whole point of what we know research-wise is that if for someone to develop adaptive responses or parts of their brain to be wired and neurons to form and synapses to develop, it's more effective through play. So we want to be seen as being playing.
Yeah.
And play is so important for young people.
Yeah. I think that's when we're like, oh, thank you, because that's
it's a
the
compliment.
art and the science really melding together.
Yeah.
So that's what it seems like.
Yeah. Speaking of
sensory.
sensory development and autism, actually. So there was this research paper that came across my table, a cascading effects model of early sensory development in autism. And this is by Russo et al., 2025. Now, I don't always go through research articles because I think sometimes, to be honest, it can be a bit dry talking about research articles. But I like this one because I think it has some real implications for reframing how we think about sensory differences as being an adjunct to a diagnosis.
Yeah. Yes.
But rather sensory differences being the hallmark of or the early signs of a diagnosis.
Yeah.
So instead of an autistic person with sensory differences, the sensory differences are essentially part of autism. And then they were talking about that in itself. So So the article that some of the authors in there, like Grace, do you know Grace Baranek, Roseanne Schaff as well? So, and these people are leaders in like SI and autism. So they've done previous other articles as well. Even Dr. Russo comes from a psych background and has done quite a bit of work on sensory approaches with autistic children.
Yeah,
so
cool.
These are people who have spent a lot of time really going into the sensory world with autistic individuals and autistic children. And the article describes this developmental cascade, and I'll describe that in a bit. But the first quarter of the article, there are some really great descriptions of the sensory systems.
Yep.
So if you did want to, and like how they emerge in utero, if you did want to, they really outline subheadings, each component, and like there's a lot of info in there, but it's really good, like really. And I won't go into it, but
yeah, that's awesome. I think we talk about like how important the integration of that information is in those really early life stages, and then what that supports from there, and just how early that process is occurring.
And even the emergence of those things in the early years of child development and the neurology of all of them, I think. We see that a bit in our field in SI, but just generally having a greater understanding of that, because it just helps form that picture of how important that early development is. But anyway, so the authors propose this sensory first model. So it's where differences in sensory structures precede and potentially cause downstream effects on social communication and repetitive behaviors.
Yeah.
So as we said, like we understand that for a lot of autistic children, there are maybe sensory challenges or sensory differences or social and communication differences or repetitive behaviors that we say are hallmarks of that. And then sensory components are its own thing. But what they're essentially saying is that it starts with a sensory difference. So how they tolerate and modulate the world causes them to respond in different ways to others.
Yep, I can make sense of that.
And it's not the first time this has been explored. Like there were some others that came across this sensory first account, even including I don't know if you know Baron Cohen is a known psychologist. Every time I see his name, I think of Sacha Baron Cohen. But it's not no relation. Anyway, but there are a whole bunch of them from different authors that proposed in the literature about this sensory first model. But this developmental cascade, and I have a little diagram here that talks about this prenatal period and the postnatal period.
Yeah.
And there's this the differences in the experiences of things that are happening in utero and the different sensory experiences that then lead to this what they call phenotypic heterogeneity, which essentially is the hallmarks or the characteristics of what we might describe as autism.
Okay.
And they bring it back to understanding that the sensory world has so many things going on, as I said, like in utero, but even, for a newborn, that there's the pre and postnatal period, and the prenatal period has a whole bunch of stuff that's going on. Like there's a whole, there's genetics, there's epigenetics, there's sensory things going on internally. And as soon as that young person comes out, there are things that they're experiencing in their world that can lead to particular presentations. So the combination of what's going on internally and the combination of what happens externally, and this sensory first model, I think, certainly, like as you said, for me, it certainly makes sense. Like there's that gives me.
I can see how that would be the driver behind interactions and experiences and how we like to explore our world. Yeah.
So they talk more about those early differences in sensory processing, and these patterns often appear before those traditional, what we would call autistic symptoms, right? So that, and again, this is a theory, but it gives more evidence towards, okay, so these things are happening, like whether it's hyper-responsivity or hypo-responsivity, being over-responsive to something or under-responsive to something, leads to what they call that cascade of changes, of developmental changes. And so if we take that theory, then we can say, okay, so someone, yes, internally has things that they may be more predisposed to expressing, but then the environment around them has an impact on how they engage. And it's because we as beings are so, driven by our the sensory world around us. Like we talk about that in SI a lot, is that we are sensory beings. And so this certainly links in with that theory. And that, I guess that ability to see those measurable traits in the first year of life, as I mentioned, whether it's hyper-responsivity, hypo-responsivity, those sensory modalities, those variations occur, and you can start drawing inferences from that. I think the challenge here is that we don't want to get too alarmist or too diagnostic about there are sensory differences, therefore it's this.
Yes.
And
people getting hung up going, oh, but I've noticed this and I've noticed that, and this is what happens, this is what
happens all the time now, right? Like sensorily they look differently in this, or they respond differently, therefore does that mean they've got autism? This is not suggesting that, but that there are sensory differences that the person may present with that would be the first steps, as opposed to they present with autism, they present with sensory differences that may be an indication that they're autistic. Yeah. But it starts with the sensory differences. Yeah. Just tying that up, I guess that cascading model is the importance of understanding that difficulties in integration may lead to particular presentations and in particular from a social perspective. And we talk about that a lot, about, how someone's touch perception may be impacted, and therefore that's having an impact on their social interaction with others, or their body awareness is something that's harder for them to process, and therefore they have difficulties in play with others because of that, right? So it certainly ties in with that theory. So I guess that's where that cascading model does come from. And I probably, it's a very, very detailed, thorough article, and I've probably only touched on some of the key terms, but the biggest thing for me was the implications for therapy, the implications from a practical perspective. And one of the things that I think of is like how important it is to start sensory interventions early. Yeah. So whether there may be potential characteristics or concerns around a diagnosis, is that sensory interventions, whether, as we said, whether they could be exposure to different environments, sensory exposure. I mean, there's all the bub club stuff that's up at the moment, and Dino did one recently about nighttime and exposing people, a young person or baby to sleeping in different environments to build up that ability to be able to modulate and tolerate different environments,
Yeah.
right? So it does come from that infancy, and that can, I guess, it could potentially help or alter the trajectory based on the environments and how that sensory intervention or early intervention occurs. I mean, that's the whole reason why we have early intervention in the first place, right?
Yeah.
You know, you get in early and you support the person to be able to, whether it's socially, whether it's sensorily, whatever it is, to be able to integrate things more effectively.
Yeah. And what I'm really hearing is that when you're talking about the trajectory, it's not a matter of this early exposure to fix anything that might result. It's actually just more about what I'm hearing, like to increase their comfortability and how they experience the world around them. So they're,
Yeah, and yes, I'm not suggesting anything cure-wise like that chief medical guy in America. I won't mention his name, but talking about cures for autism and whatnot.
And this doesn't read like that at all.
No,
It's
no,
more
this
just
is
actually
a
like maximizing that
scientific
experience.
paper.
Yeah.
And it talks about early intervention to support a young person. So, but ultimately, you know, like Elliot, any early intervention, it's to allow that person to be able to do things that they want to do more freely in their life.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's one. That's
and
one
work towards their
component.
potential and be the best version of themselves. Like, yeah, I think that's all that we're looking to achieve with that.
So that was my article of the week for you.
Article of the week.
Oh no, don't tell me.
No, we're not. No, I don't think we're quite ready for that to be a regular segment. But I loved that breakdown and learning about that. So thank you so much for sharing those key learnings.
No worries.
But yes, if anyone wants to send through any articles for us to read or any other questions, things to chat through, you can do so via our email address, podcast@otfcgroup.au, or of course through our Instagram page, which is @otfcgroup.
That's the handle.
That's the handle.
Wonderful. Anything else you wanted to ask?
No, I think you've been very comprehensive in the information that you provided today. So thank you for sharing that.
Great.
Really enjoyed those learnings.
Excellent.
Well, that's it for us for today. We'll see you next time. Shout out to Fletch if you're listening. And we'll see you guys next time.
Thanks very much.